All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at your free responses that you did for Unit 1 and on the AP Classroom and see how you did. I have graded some of these, and I was actually quite surprised um, at some of the basic things that we didn't include. So, I thought these were pretty straightforward, basic questions. And so I'm glad that we're going over this because these are definitely things that you should have recognized that you should have included. So here we go. All right. So the first question, or actually the questions might have been reversed, but the first question that I looked at was this one where we were given this information, and then we were asked to make a histogram of the data. Okay. So the key was this. Okay. So the key was that you had to label. Down here was the ages in years, and then the frequency. Okay, now here's a big mistake that I saw. This is a histogram. It is not categorical data. Categorical data would have separated bars such as this. Okay, we don't have separated bars. We have quantities that go up against each other. 20 to 30 is one bin, and 30 up to 40 is the second bin, and so on. All right. So we were marked wrong if we did not have all four of these items. The horizontal axis is labeled with the correct numbers and the correct verbal description. The vertical axis is labeled with the correct numbers and the correct verbal description, okay? And it's a histogram. If you did this, and you had separate bars, you don't have a histogram. You have a bar graph or a bar chart, okay? So you had to have these bars touching to get credit for that. All right. So there was the information on that. Now, one other thing that I did not see happening in the description of the answer, but I thought about this, is because I was tempted and I saw some people did this, that they did like little squigglies and then they started about 80. Okay? So my thought is that that's dangerous to do. And the reason that that is dangerous to do is that a histogram has to be appropriate proportional relationship. And if you do not include all of this data in this height correctly, okay, then you are not showing the correct proportional relationship. For example, let's just envision that we started at 80. Okay, so let's say that the bottom of our histogram went to 80. Can you see proportionately how much smaller this looks? More than this bar looks about a third of the size of this bar, or even a fourth. Yeah, wait. One, two. Okay, this bar looks like it's the fourth of the value of this first bar. And that is not true. The first bar is 160, the second bar is 80. Or it's 100. Okay, so it's definitely not a fourth, but it looked about like that much. Okay, therefore you should not have those little squigglies, because that's going to change. It's called violating the area principle. Okay, histograms have to have that correct proportional relationship. All right, so now let's go on to the next part of this, part B. You were asked to describe the distribution. I mean, hello, people. I don't know what to tell you. Describe the distribution, shape and outliers, center and spread. Okay, you had to identify all of those. Plus, you had to give specific numbers and which measure of center you use for center, specific numbers and which measure of spread you use for the variability. Okay, they want context also. So here was their ideal solution. They said that this was roughly symmetric. I also added that it was bimodal or it was unimodal, but I put how there were higher values on the outside edges and roughly symmetric. I can see that. Now, I actually went here and I calculated that there's 765 pieces of data. Okay, and so that made the 383rd piece of data as the median. Okay, because if I line them all up in order, then the 383rd piece of data is going to be the median. Okay, and that 383rd piece of data falls in this section here from 40 up to 50. And so that's why the description says the median is from 40 up to 50 years of age. Okay. Now they also said that they described the spread. You might have said I when I did it myself, I said the range was from 20 up to 80. So the range was about 60. I said about 60. The range is about 60 years of age from somewhere in the 20s to 30s to the 70s and 80s. So they were a little bit more wishy-washy and said the minimum is between 20 and 30 and the max is between. So they were describing the spread. So see, the range is between 40 and 60 years wide. Okay? Now, they said also that there doesn't seem to be outliers or gaps. So that's how they address the outliers. All right, so I was sad at how many people did not describe that entire distribution. So let's look at that scoring. So you had to get all four components to get an essentially correct. Let's see, partially correct if the response includes 2, 3, or 4. Okay, in order to get essentially correct, you had to have all of those components and being in context, of course. Partially, if you only get a couple of those, 2, 3, or 4, but it's not in context or something's missing. You get incorrect if you do not have at least 2 items. That means if you only told me about the shape of it, then you got an I. You missed the whole entire portion for that part B. All right, C is was asking you about, does this histogram suggest that the data could have come from a normal distribution of information? So, let's think to what we've done fairly recently with our inference. When we've done our little dot plots and we've tried to show that this sampling distribution looks like it could have come from a normal population, we were saying, oh, it's somewhat symmetric, unimodal, and there's no outliers. So that's the type of thing that we should be addressing. Okay. Furthermore, we need to see that it's, bell-shaped and that unimodal has that center mode there so that it looks like it's approximately normal. And people, this right here is not unimodal and somewhat symmetric and the bell shape. Okay, we've definitely got higher proportion of young people and older people in this situation. Okay, in this vacation resort, so it does not appear as though it is coming from that normal distribution. And that's what we have to have been saying on this problem. We had to say that no, that does not suggest that it is coming from a normal distribution. So here's how you got credit for that. You got full credit if you said that it is not coming from the normal distribution and you gave that explanation as to like it's not got the values farther from the mean or higher frequency. You had those higher bars on those outside edges. So it is not likely that it came from normal. It's not bell-shaped, that kind of stuff. Okay. P, if you say that it's not normally distributed, but you don't really give a good indication about how the sides are higher instead of the middle being higher. And if you said, yes, it's normal, then you automatically got completely incorrect and did not get full credit for that. Okay. So that is how you get those. Now, I'll show at the end um, how you could get a score of a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or I put that in your when I scored, I gave you a 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on that. Okay, let's go over to the second problem. This one was about the northern region and the southern region and the weight of the birds. Okay, so here, most everybody did a really good job actually on this. We had very good on this describing the z-score, and that's how many standard deviations the 13-ounce bird was away from the northern region and is away from average in the southern region. In this number of standard deviations away from the mean. Now, if you did not put z equals, then it's wrong. Okay? Well, let's see here. Yeah, you do not have supporting calculations and appropriate labeling. You have to put z equals there, or else you get your I. Okay? And I've told you that all year long, and that has to be there. Now, I was sad with the information. I had about half people get part B right and half people get part B wrong. And the interesting thing is well, it does let you give partial credit. But anyway, so let's take a look at this. So it really only required that you referenced the number of standard deviations away from the mean. Okay, here was their ideal solution. 13 ounces is one standard deviation above the mean, and that one in the southern was 1.2 standard deviations below the mean. So it is more likely that a bird So let's see what this says about this information. 16% of the birds from the north weigh more than 13 ounces, and 88% of the birds from the south have a weight greater than 13. So therefore, it is more likely that a bird of this type with a greater weight. So see, I actually kind of don't like that relate when they start bringing in these percentages. I think it gets a little on the confusing side. Which one is more likely? Okay, well, you're going to be closer to the mean. So the simplest way to say you're good to go on this one is by that basically just saying the bird in the north is closer to the average and is more likely to be occurring because it is closer to the average. It is one standard deviation away, and the other one is 1.2 standard deviations away. Okay, so you had to directly compare those two z-scores. You had to say that the one that is, it's more likely that a bird of this type and weight greater than 13, lives in the southern region. Maybe I misunderstood the question. Let's take a look back at that. Is it more likely that a bird of this type and weight with a weight greater than 13 ounces Oh, yeah, I did it wrong when I did the problem. Greater than 13 ounces lives in the northern or the southern. Okay. Yikesies. I was thinking it was more which region is it more likely to come up with one that is 13 ounces? So I actually think I might have graded some people's free responses wrong. So let's take a look back at that and let's rethink it. A weight in the northern greater than 13 or greater in the northern is only 16% of birds. Okay, in the southern, a weight of 13 or greater is 88% of birds. That's the key. Weight greater than 13 ounces. So therefore, it is more likely that the bird came from the southern region if they got 88. If they weighed 13 ounces or more, they came from the southern region. Okay, you had to say it came from the southern, and it's because it had more area that was greater than that 13 ounces. So I misread that problem originally and thought it was saying which is more likely to come across. Which region is it more likely that it's 13 ounces? Is it from northern or southern? So anyway, there you go. So we want to be careful on that reading, and I misinterpreted it. Okay, moving on. Actually, I think that was all on those things. So basically, an E is 2 points, a P is 1 point. So if you, and a I is 0 points. So you could see how you would have gotten an EP or 4 points if you got two E's, 3 points if you got an E and a P, and so on. So you could figure out how you got your score on that one. All right, so that's the conclusion of how you graded those free response questions on that Unit 1.